surfcasters in the room? Okay. Anybody fish Montauk? Block Island? 2. Cape Cod? Okay, okay. All right, cool. So if you're traveling to fish the canal, or you're traveling to fish Block Island, or Montauk, or even Plum Island, so if you're traveling more than an hour, and the tide is wrong, what are you going to do? Right? Sit around, talk fish. Grab your freshwater gear and fish the local ponds and local rivers, and get more fishing time in. In terms of freshwater surf casting, these species that all surfcasters target is lake trout, and primarily in the Wachusett Reservoir. It's an amazing fishery. You can go out there with a 7, 8 foot, 9 foot rod, and you can catch some really, really big lakers. But lake trout is not the only species you can target. Carp, yellow perch, walleye, muskie, pike. There's tons of species out there. You just never know what you're going to catch. Carp is a little specialized. I mean, you can get out there with some artificials on carp, but it's a very specialized technique. But the other species are basically the same methods. Yeah. The 2 species that I'm going to target today are largemouth bass and smallmouth bass. Like striped bass, they're aggressive predators, they're structure orientated, and they have seasonal migration patterns. Right? As surfcasters, you know how to target a fish that have those 3 things, right? So largemouth bass and smallmouth bass are not that different. They look the same, but they're actually quite different. We'll try this pointer thing. Black eye on largemouth, red eye on smallmouth. Largemouth has a black lateral line on both sides like that, and smallmouth has vertical lines like that. So it's slightly different, but I can tell you that smallmouths are pretty aggressive. They're actually a lot of fun to catch. Unlike striped bass, largemouth bass and smallmouth bass are not bass. They're members of the perch family. White bass, striped bass, and peacock bass are the 3 bass in the bass family. So, for you biology majors out there. Gear, right? You have waders, you have a surf belt, right? You have a lot of gear that you could reuse. You don't have to go out and buy all new gear. Maybe a few different lures, but generally speaking, you can recycle maybe about 75 to 80% of the gear you already have, right? Which is good, right? It won't break your bank. Freshwater guys love rods, they love reels. I mean, this is a clip from a boat, but they got a rod and reel and line set up for every lure. 17 pound on this, 25 pound on that, 30 pound on this. As a surfcaster, how many rods can you carry? 1. Right. So you got to carry 1 rod and fish a variety of lures, which you're already accustomed to doing, right? So I tend to use spinning because it covers about 9 out of 10 things I want to do, and it works pretty well for me. Rigs. When I'm surfcasting for striped bass, I use 2 rigs. That's it. Standard plug rig or plug and teaser rig, right? For largemouth and smallmouth, I use 5 different types of rigs. I just store them all in my Aquaskids leader wallet, hang it on my belt, I'm good to go. Because I'm fishing 5 different rigs, I only have 1 rod, right? I don't got 1 rod for each type of rig. I need a way to quickly change up my leaders, right? Take your main line, tie a crazy Alberto knot onto like a segment of 20-pound mono, tie a loop on it, double surgeon's loop, and all your leaders have another loop on it, and you just do a loop-to-loop exchange. Very simple, it works really well. I use braid on my main line because then I don't have to use a swivel. So less weeds, less hang-ups, and just use a clip on the end to clip on your lures. That's not new. You've been doing that for a long time. A lot of freshwater guys don't do that. They actually tie direct. That's somewhat new, perhaps, for you guys. But it works really well, and you can carry a lot of different leaders in just 1 rod. Standard leaders, instead of a 4-foot leader, probably down to 20, 30-inch leaders. Drop a loop, 10 inches for your teaser. Pretty standard stuff. Now, this is perhaps what you haven't seen. Anybody heard of a Texas rig? Carolina rig, Alabama rig. I never heard of an Alabama rig. Texas rig and Carolina rig are like very, very common rigs, right? They're very similar. The main difference is the weight. So your weight on the Texas rig is just above your lure, right? And it'll actually slide on the line. The Carolina rig, you have a swivel, and then it's above that, right? So those are the similarities. What's different about them? They're both used for soft plastics, right? This one here, the Texas rig, is used for less than 10 feet of water. So if you're fishing fairly shallow water, you just want to be fishing, that works really well. 1/4 of an ounce, 1/16 of an ounce, all the way to 1/2 ounce. Carolina rig is more for like deeper water, 10, 20 feet of water, and you're doing long distance casting, and you want to get down deep, and you're talking 1/2 ounce to 1 ounce, right? Like an ounce, I fish plugs that are 3.5 ounces, right? An ounce is like the top in freshwater. It's different. Saltwater, you're going from 1 to 4 to 5, and freshwater, you're topping out at 1 ounce. Tackle box. You can go out and buy one of those fancy multi-draw boxes, right? You carry that around with you. As a surf caster, you know that mobility is the key to success. You need to be able to move from spot to spot. Take your plug bag, take out the inserts, right? The tubes, and just put 1 or 2 plano boxes, and you're good to go. And it's a very, very effective tackle box. Belt, I grab my surf belt and just use freshwater. I doubt I'll be weighing a 60-pound fish anytime soon, but those pike and those chain pickerel have some pretty nasty teeth, as well as walleye. So that's mostly as a lip gripper, knife, dehooker, all those tools will apply. Here's the fun part: presentations, right? So by presentations, I mean lures. There are more freshwater lures than there are saltwater lures, literally. Right? Just to open up Bass Pro Shops or Cabela's or any of those books, it's huge. We would need an entire college semester to cover them all, right? I'm going to show you a cross-section of lures that you could fish throughout the whole water column and any structure that will hold fish, right? First one is plugs. You can take some of your saltwater plugs. What's this one? Jitterbug, right? It's actually a sea flag that I made Lemire Plug Works. This is a smaller version. It's about 1.5 ounces, I think. This will definitely catch fish, right? So this is, you got this. You got small metal lips, right? Danny plug. Small poppers will work pretty well too, right? Ironically, I haven't done much with plugs. I fish plugs almost exclusively in the surf, except for those rare times I go chunking, but I haven't done much with plugs. Why? Primarily because I fish a lot of weedy areas, full of lily pads, full of weeds, full of stumps. Treble hooks are just going to snag up everything, right? But if you can get to some clear patches of water, these things are deadly. This is a funny story. An 11-year-old boy goes to Block Island, you know, the land where they have the big bass, striped bass. Goes surf casting, gets skunked, right? So what does a bored 11-year-old boy do? Takes his 9-foot surf rod and his plugs, and he goes to one of the local ponds on Block Island. Fishes a pencil popper, fishes swimmers, fishes all the plugs he has. Lands a 9-pound bass, right? So that saved his trip. Plugs do work. I've heard of many other stories of people using very large pencil poppers to hook up some largemouth bass. Crankbaits, again, if you can find some clear water, these work out really well. What's the best crankbait? Any guesses? If you look at that picture there, which one would you pick? Which one would you say is the best?
The yellow.
That one right there?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other boats?
Sabile on the top.
Sabile? Yeah. Okay. One more.
One
One right there? Yeah. Ooh, the Rapala. Yeah, the VX Venom. That's a really good one. What if I told you all of them? I'm not being fictitious. When you're talking about crankbaits, two things, it's not what crankbait, it's when, right? When do you fish the Sabile? When do you fish the short square bill? When do you fish the rounded long bill? When do you fish the split back with the short bill at a 45-degree angle, right? So the first thing you got to ask yourself is, what depth of the water column do you want to fish, right? You want to fish the top three, the middle, and the bottom, right? Once you figure out the depth, that'll reduce your selection. The second thing is color, right? Bright colors when the water's dirty, right? Rivers, ponds, when you have very murky, you want to go with bright colors. If you're fishing, you know, pristine lakes, right? Or very clear water lakes, you want to go with more natural colors, right? Based on those two things, you'll hook up a fish, right? In salt water, it's more like dark colors at night, white base colors during the day. It's a little bit different from freshwater. Frogs. It's August. It's hot. Stripers have lockjaw. What do? You go to a Plum Island Surfcasters club meeting and you complain about it, right? That's what we do. We're grumpy old men, right? Pick up some frogs and go fishing to your pond. Smallmouth bass are aggressive predators. They're not vegetarian. They like meat. A bunker is to a striped bass as a frog is to a largemouth bass. A chunk of protein, right? Here's a nice cross-section of frogs. I mean, you got popping frogs, hollow body frogs, frogs with their legs that move like an actual frog. This frog is crazy. It swims down deep. It's nuts. And you got all different things in between. Different colors, different styles. Just try them differently and fish the ones you like. Again, depends on the conditions and the cover. I haven't done a lot with frogs. I've only just started getting turned on to them. But where am I going to be this August? I'm going to be frogging. I'll keep you posted. Spinner baits. Deadly. If you don't remember anything about tonight, remember the word spinner bait. The first largemouth bass I caught was on a spinner bait. Before I die, it'll be on a spinner bait. All right? This is a search lure. I mean, you could, if you don't catch a fish on a spinner bait, there's just no fish there. Key things, colors. Again, bright chartreuse, whites, oranges, yellows, dirty water, more natural colors, and clear water. There are different style blades. You have like a rounded blade, a little willow leaf blade, so you have bigger Indiana blade. So three things with blades: the number of blades, the size of the blades, and the combination of blades. It could become a science, right? I mean, you can really get into it. Well, I'm going to use a double willow loop, I'm going to use a single Indiana, I'm going to use this color, that color. It's crazy. You know what I do? I go and I buy a package of this, a package of this, a package of that. And I just experiment and I try to see what works. Bass love spinner baits. Some will be more effective than others in different conditions, but in general, you almost can't go wrong by selecting cross section. What I tend to do more is more on the weight of the head. Do I want a 3/8 ounce? Do I want a 1/2 ounce? Do I want a 1/4 ounce? Again, the depth of the water column and fishing. The different blades, I'll just experiment with different things to see what works. Trailers are big. You want to put a little trailer there. What does this remind you of? The worst surfcasters in the room, right? Bucktails? Right? That's just the bucktail. No deer here, right? You have, silicone or rubber skirts, right? You got a trailer, i.e. portline, right? The cool thing is you actually have blades. I'd love to see a bucktail with blades. That sonic action is nuts. It's crazy. Where's that guy that did something with sonic? Greg Myerson, right? Battle sinkers, sound, right? Those blades are, I think, in my opinion, is actually what attracts the bass. You got the flash, you got the color, you got the sound. They see a little wiggle tail, they see that skirts, boom. I got a cool story about a spinner bait. I'll get to it in a minute.
Do they work on smallmouth as well as largemouth?
Yes, absolutely. The only thing you may want to do is downsize a little bit. Like this one here is a little bit smaller. You see the skirt's a little shorter. They definitely work on smallmouth. The cool thing about spinner baits is they catch fish. The bad thing about spinner baits is that they're difficult to store because you got the wire, you don't want to bend it or fold it. I'm cheap, right? I'm not gonna go out and spend a lot of money on tackle boxes. I'm just recycling my plug bag, right? Plano makes a really nice, simple box for like less than $10 that has little inserts there that you can put all different spin rates. Keeps it all nice and organized. I got it up here if you want to see it. I'm gonna get another one. I'm gonna have one with just bright chartreusey colors and one with more natural colors. Jigs. This is a little closer to a bucktail, right, minus the blades. Very similar. The primary difference between this and a bucktail is the weed guard. Weedless, right? Why? There's tons of weeds. Lots of trees, lots of weed cover. That's where the bass are. They're hiding behind that cover. So you fish something weedless, and those little fibers there, they'll just bend straight down as soon as the fish goes on it. Some guys actually will cut from that point to here, at a 45-degree angle. They'll cut that little piece off because they think it flexes a little bit more. And they have a problem. If the fish comes up and hits it, it's going to hook it. There's at least 4 different types of jigs, right? You know, bass guys like to get very geeky, very technical, really into it. At the end of the day, there's only really 2. So let's say you're on shore, and you're casting away, and you want to just reel it in, right? You want to basically fish the water column at a certain depth, horizontal, right? You want a swim jig. You see the little diagonal head there? That's just going to swim through the water column. You can bounce it like with a bucktail. You can just swim it like a bucktail. You put a hook on, put a trailer. Works great. The only difference here is the weed guard. But you can fish that exactly like a bucktail and you'll catch fish. Recycling another skill, right? This one here is a little bit different. It's called a football jig. It literally looks like a football, right? And so let's say that stack of chairs there is a huge rock, right? And you're on shore, and you got the right angle, and you just cast to that rock, and it's just going to go straight down. It's a vertical presentation. So the football jig is you're fishing vertically down the water column. Then you jig it up, drop it down, jig it up, so it's more of a vertical column. It's great for when you're fishing docks or rock piles or pilings. Soft plastics, we would need a whole seminar just on soft plastics. There's a whole variety of them. I love them because they're weedless, inexpensive, incredible action, and they catch lots of fish. The thing with soft plastics is they don't smell fishy. Right? You open up the box, they smell like petroleum, or they smell like different smells. I use scents quite a bit, primarily just to hide the natural smells. Even though I take a shower, I still smell to a fish, right? Oops. You can use a spray, quick ad hoc application. This is pretty cool. Lotions. Marinate your soft plastics. Put it in a plastic bag, marinate them, it'll seep into it, and it'll diffuse scent throughout the whole thing. The other one's more of a balm from BioEdge. You just put it on your hard baits or your plugs or your crankbaits. It stays on your presentation longer, but it doesn't diffuse as well. All 3 of them work. Soft plastics have this thing called a wacky rig. Anybody ever hear of a wacky rig?
Yes.
No.
Really?
Yes.
One?
Yeah.
I know you have. All right. So it's crazy. It's wacky. Let me see if I can find one here for you. I know I got one. I got too many lures. Of course, I can't find it when I need it. But basically, you can imagine it. You take a Senko or another stick bait, plastic bait. Put a plastic ring. You can use a tool like that. Put the plastic ring right in the center of it, right? Slip a hook underneath that plastic ring without pitching the soft plastic bait. And that's a VMC, weedless hook. Everybody knows VMC, they make hooks for saltwater. They also make hooks for freshwater. Put it on your leader. It's a vertical presentation, right? Cast it out there to that structure, and as it drops vertically, it's going to do this. It's going to flap all the way down. Incredible action. Drives the fish nuts. Works really well, and you could just hook it up with a standard leader. Texas rig. This should go into the video. So you take an extra wide gap hook, put it through the tip, and you just pinch it, and you put it through the top. I know you guys like rigging your sluggos in tandem, 2 hooks. Try rigging it in Texas rig. Okay? It's a weedless presentation. If you're fishing cutty hunk, God knows there's bubble weed in cutty hunk. That's why everybody fishes starting at the high tide. Fish a sluggo, you're not going to get snagged up, right? But the primary reason, besides weedless, is action. That sluggo rigged like that, and you stick your rod in and you just tap it like this, incredible action. Absolutely incredible action. And nowadays you can get some really cool fancy, some really cool. Yeah, that'll work with zoom food. You can get, some owner has it, owner started, you can get, oh goodness gracious. You can get a weight here. You can get a pinch weight or the weight's already molded on the hook. It doesn't have to be much. Owner makes a hook called the Beast. Really, really strong wire, up to I think ½ an ounce or ¼ ounce weight. Doesn't sound like a lot, but the weight of the plastic itself is enough. It gets down and it just works really, really well. Metals and flies. Anybody know what a Castmaster is? Of course, shake your heads. Yes, you know what Castmaster is, right? That little guy there is a 3/8 ounce Castmaster. 3/8 of an ounce, not even an ounce, right? We're talking about a fraction of an ounce. That particular lure has caught me 2 smallmouth bass around the 4-pound range. Right? Metals cast far, and as they move through the water column, they have incredible action and flash. Reflects light, right? Flies cast near, and they imitate baitfish color, size, and profile. What happens when you combine the two? You catch fish. Why? That's a little gold shiner. That's a dead imitation of that fish. Right? I got a couple of stories. I was at Wachusett Reservoir recently in the spring. Took that exact Castmaster, a few other lures I was fishing. And get there, a couple of guys are crowding the beach, so I can't fish that section, gate 35, if anybody knows it. All right, cool, no worries. So I sat there, took out my surf casting skills, read the water, fairly shallow water, but I found a spot where it was deeper. Along the road that runs parallel, there was this huge rock pile as a barrier. I had boots, corkers, not a problem. Walked right across those rocks, found a nice flat rock where the water was darkest, deepest. Hammered out a very long cast. Like by my 3rd cast, nice huge smallmouth on that cast. Right? Incredible action and incredible color. Smart surf casting. Who wants to catch a lot of fish? Nobody wants to catch fish? Are you guys looking for the home ec? Who wants to catch big fish? All right, everybody wants to catch big fish. But what if I told you can do both? All right? It doesn't have to be one or the other. You could actually do both. Here's some tips. First thing, get a first aid kit. All right? Safety. You don't have to go and buy a fancy 101-piece first aid kit. Waterproof tape, antibiotic, some Band-Aids, gauze, and put it in a gasket-sealed plano box so it's watertight. Keep it in your box, keep it in your waders. When you need it is when you don't have it, so get that. Second thing is when you're fishing freshwater, unlike saltwater, there are unlimited tripping hazards. I mean, there are stumps, there are twigs, there are rocks. And look at that water. I mean, that's pretty dark. You can see some of the rocks, but a lot of them, I hammered my toe with them. Good thing I had good strong boots, right? I use a saltwater rod, my 10-foot, 11-foot rods are great. I was on Cuddy Hunt, and I was going like this to the bass rocks as the waves are smashing my chest. I used it as a tripod, right? You got a 10-foot rod, nice diameter, nice and stiff. This rod doesn't have the length or the rigidity to be a walking stick. I use my GoPro selfie stick. Yeah, that's a real term, selfie stick. I'm okay with that though. Or use a ski pole, anything to kind of keep you balanced so you don't trip. So that's the safety stuff, right? Because the other thing is, goes without saying, use waders, there's snakes, turtles, leeches, that sort of thing. Potentially bacteria. Do your recon, right? You guys all know your freshwater, saltwater spots. Freshwater spots are different. Primarily, access is even more restricted, right? You see a nice pond with lily pads, it doesn't mean it's going to hold fish, because it's stocked by the state. Has the community of homeowners basically outlaw fishing. Had they killed the fisher. Two cool books, Long Island Freshwater, that's actually no longer available, it's out of print. But that's how I found out about Fort Pond when I was going to Montauk. That's actually Roy Lieber. He looks very handsome, doesn't he? He was young back then. He's coming in September. All joking aside, my friend Roy Lieber contributed to that book, and that's a book on ponds and lakes in Cape Cod. Sunday night at 6 p.m. Boats are flying off Cape Cod. Bass boats, freshwater boats. Cape Cod has some of the best bass fishing, and it was an unkept secret for a long time, but the secret's gone out. And if you're going down there for the canal, bring your freshwater water, and research some spots. Do your recon. Use Google Maps and Google Earth to identify access and structure. The thing with Google Earth, it's not always great because some of the ponds have so many trees that you won't be able to see the structure. In some cases you will. So experiment with both views. Does anybody know where Fresh Pond is? Block Island. So if you look at that, where would you fish? That point, right? You're going after points, you're going after structure, once you get on the ground, you can be looking for different types of structure. Internet and books will get you so far on your recon. At the end of the day, you're going to get your boots on, lace them up, get your cameras and go do some recon, right? Do some on-the-ground research. What do I mean by recon? Take pictures, get GPS coordinates, identify where you can't fish. Water bodies, always good to know where that is. Missed the poison ivy. That's cool, they got to recycle. Here's a nice little clip of the area I fished. It's GoPro. You got to figure out how to add music. But you can see it's an overcast day, right? And if you look closely, you'll be able to see that water there? See how shallow that is? See those rocks? That's like a foot of water, and it goes out quite a bit. Let's give it a second here. This is gate 35. See those rocks along the edge there? Nice. See that rock? It's a nice perch to stand on, right? See how the rocks are much deeper here, and you see here you don't see anything, right? See the darkness there? Right in front there was where all that deep water was, and that's where I caught that 4-pound smallmouth.
That's the one.
Yeah, gate 35. There's a bunch of gates, some gates you could fish, some gates you can't fish. You could do your research online, you can figure out what gates they are, keep notes of it. I'm going to be going back there again, because it's a really, we complain about access, but to watch you reservoir is huge. There's so much water, it's amazing. And you have gates, and you can literally park in front of the gates and walk to it, so you have plenty of access. Take your 8-footer, take your 9-footer, cast some metals and flies, or cast some long-range plastics. Lake trout, smallmouth, largemouth, and there's also perch in there as well. Fish structure. This is classic bassy water. Shallow water, less than 10 feet, lots of vegetation. This is in a pond in Maine that is so secluded not even the locals know it's there. You can access this lake by permissive trespass. The state of Maine has permissive trespass permission from one of the landowners to access his land to go stock this pond. Right? So I've gone there, I've done well there. Really fishy spot. Again, very secluded. There's literally 2 houses on that lake. When I go there, I leave nothing behind. And I met the homeowner by accident because I drove up to his house trying to find the lake. Nice guy though. Classic structure. If you're fishing this, think weedless, right? Or soft plastics or weedless jigs. And frogs. Structure, this is a river, so you have timber here, right? When you're fishing a river, for largemouth bass or smallmouth bass, unlike the Cape Cod Canal or the Merrimack River where you're casting towards the center of it and you're fishing most of that, here you want to cast to the center or just off center. Let it drift. And then when it gets about there, retrieve it. What you want to do is retrieve. Your strike zone is here, all the way to your feet, underneath these overhanging tree branches. That provides shadow, that provides cover. There's also where all the bait fish are, right? And in this particular spot, you can basically fish on crankbaits, top water, jigs, plastics, whatever you like to fish. Structure, man-made structure. So you have these vertical pilings here. Awesome for a Senko, a wacky rig Senko, or a football jig. And you literally fish each one of them. If you're walking on shore, wait very, very slowly because you'll literally spook the fish. Where's the structure? This is Fort Pond in Montauk. This is where I caught that 4 bass, right? Drove 500 miles to catch 4 largemouth bass. But if I didn't bring my freshwater gear, I would have got scalped, right? Oops. If you notice the water here, it's moving at a faster rate than the water here. So here the water's going like this, it's going down that way. There's an outlet down there and it's flowing this way. Over here it starts to flow slower and it kind of pools over here, right? So that tells you that there's a drop off right there. All of my 4 bass, I mean I fished that, there's a public access ramp maintained by the New York State, and from there you can go all the way around the point to the backside and everything. So I'm out there waiting with my selfie stick, right? You know, self-respecting man, I don't want to trip on and break my chin. 2 deer come running out of the bush. It was like a Volkswagen that dropped on the lake, scared the hell out of me, right? Looked around, it's like 2 deer, they looked at me and they kept going. And I look over more closely and I start identifying that structure. Spinnerbait. 3/8 of an ounce. Chartreuse silver white with a white glow in the dark Gary Yamamoto rub trailer. I worked that entire wedge. Then I started getting bored, and all of a sudden, literally, this largemouth bass with a mouth like this big, if it had melon down there, right? Completely jumped out of the water. What do? I froze. I'd never seen that. Just absolutely amazing. That fish still haunts me to this day. I've lost striped bass, but that fish haunts me to this day. Again, 1 lunar year away from today, the new moon of last year. And I was just like floored. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's fish here, right? Sluggo, Senko, and spinnerbaits are the things I produced on this trip at this particular structure. Never fished Fort Pond. Never fished it. Read it in the book, walked out there, identified structure, worked the water column, and caught some 4 nice bass, right?